I'm going to tell you about the experience I had at my first job. I've always been a girl who wanted to have my own things. My mom always taught me about that. Even though she was always there, she supported the household, she did everything. And since I was about to turn 18, I was 17, right? I thought when I turn 18, I'll be an adult. I'll already be legally responsible, so I urgently need to find a job. And then I had a friend who worked at a place, and I told her, girl, put in a good word for me at your job. Maybe they'll hire me. She talked to them and said, oh, you're hired. And I said, oh, that's great. They told me what time I had to go, and I went, I thought it was a little strange because when I got there, I was already there to work, so we didn't have an interview, and I think that's one of our biggest fears, right? The job interview, whether we'd get hired or not, but then I didn't have that. I was already hired right away. Well, in the beginning, we would go into a studio, and there was this guy, he had his own way, and he would record and he would talk about personal finance. He would talk about many things, most of which I honestly didn't understand. I was there 100% for the money because, like I said, I wanted to save up money. Soon I would turn 18. I wanted to have work experience. And this guy, he paid weekly. So perfect. I could help my mom out weekly, even better. In the beginning, my job was to edit testimonials from people who bought his course and stuff. And I had to edit those testimonials. I remember that if I had a comma out of place, a spelling mistake, anything like that, he would always say, like, pay attention. He would say it in a kind of harsh way, as if I wasn't doing it right and stuff. I thought all of that was kind of strange, but since I needed the money, I would take the feedback he gave me to improve, make the changes, deliver it, and that was it. There were times when he would give a talk to the employees. There were six of us, and he would say things like, it's very hard to find people who are as evolved as I am. People are very difficult, you know? So he would present himself as the natural leader, amazing, wonderful, perfect. And I, a 17-year-old girl, I listened to all that and thought, I'm going to learn everything I can from him. Over time, he asked me what I like to do. And I said that I've always really liked watching games, playing, and watching streamers. I've always liked playing and watching. And I told him, and he said, oh, so do this. Why don't you start helping with the schedule for my streams? So I said, no, that's fine. I started scheduling his streams. What started happening was he would come up with these ideas to schedule streams like every single minute. I don't know if it's so people get the notification. I don't really get what it is, but I had to keep scheduling the streams. I had a phone. He gave me the company phone, and I just keep going. Until one day it was a Friday payday, right? And that day, I woke up, had a nice breakfast, and thought to myself, well, since today is Friday, he's going to pay me, and then I'll have lunch, right? So I didn't bring lunch that day, counting on that money, especially because my mom hadn't made dinner the night before. She came home tired from work, and there was no dinner, so I didn't have lunch for the next day, but I was about to get paid and would buy my own food. We got to work, I went to ask him for the money, and he just pretended he didn't know anything. Everyone stared at each other, but he continued as if he hadn't heard anything. So I insisted and said it again, but he kept acting like he didn't hear me. I felt a little embarrassed and ended up not saying anything. Guys, just a reminder, I was a 17-year-old girl. It was my first experience, right? And then after that day, I remember he started making excuses to us for those late payments. He started saying that we weren't selling the course, that it was our fault, that we didn't deserve to get paid because we didn't do a good job. And when he did make a payment, he would pay us in small installments. It was just a matter of time before some people started to leave, but me and a few others, we stayed because it was a job. I was there working, and sometimes he paid, sometimes it took a while, sometimes he paid the wrong amount, sometimes he paid less, but sometimes he did pay me, and that was meeting my primary need, which was money. Then one day he told us, look, I have a strategy, we're going to do an event, and then he asked us to work on the weekend. We said, okay, that's fine, right? We had to go to the place where the event would be on Saturday to clean, organize, and leave everything more or less ready because the event would be the next day. And then I got really tired because we had to do a lot of work that Saturday. There were several things that were totally outside of my role, but it's okay, it's fine, no problem at all. Oh, and during this time too, since some people had left, I started to take on the responsibility of managing his Instagram, right? And like he was kind of famous on Instagram. He did a lot of live streams. He posted a lot of things about the course on how to get rich. He had a course that was called exactly that, How to Get Rich Wealth Tips. He sold courses to rich people. I never took his course, but I know that's what he did. Everything was about money. And when I took over his Instagram, I received lots and lots and lots and lots of messages. I started getting messages from people asking for refunds. People would send photos, people would send videos. There was a guy who was living in a tent, and he took all the money he had left to buy a course. And he said that the course had nothing, that the course didn't teach anything, that the course was a fraud, that the course was a lie, and he asked for a refund. There were older people, elderly people who believed it, who thought they were going to get rich, saying, "You said you were going to teach the formula to get rich, but you didn't teach the formula to get rich." And there were a lot of people, and it was every day. And then when I questioned him, like, what do I say to these people? He always said, forget about it. These people are lost. They're failures in life. These people don't want to change. So I let it go because honestly, it really bothered me, but I focused on what I was being paid to do there. Actually, that day, I got home and looked him up on Google. And when I searched his name, I saw that there were several accusations of scams, that he had scammed people, and to be careful, that his course was a fraud. But anyway, even so, I was still a little confused about whether it was true or not. After all, he had a pretty decent life, right? And he also had a wife, both of them were the same, like they had this huge sense of superiority. Anyway, going back to the weekend of the course, we worked all day Saturday, and on Sunday we had to get there in the morning, right? I got there at 5 in the morning. He said we had to be there 5 in the morning. Like, why so early? So, we had to wake everyone up at 4:30 to have breakfast for everything. No, come here. We got there, everyone stayed in their position, and then it was a fiasco. Guys, there were 5 people at the event. 5 people went to the event. And it was really exhausting. And then he would talk to people, and I stayed on the live stream, right? Because I kept the live stream going because my job was to run the live stream and read people's comments, keep reading the comments so he could answer questions and things like that. And outside the live stream, I was on Instagram, scheduling live streams and interacting on his social media, on his Instagram. And like it was really tiring, it was really exhausting. We finished Sunday really late, packed everything up, organized everything. It was a lot of work. And when the next day came, when we went to ask him about getting paid, about the weekend, he just turned around and said he wasn't going to pay any of us for the weekend's work, that we had done this to help him, that he hadn't sold enough courses to be able to pay us, and that he didn't have any money. That made me really angry. Wow, it made me really angry. And then pretty much everyone quit, everyone left the company. But like I said, every now and then he would still pay. He paid late, he paid wrong, but sometimes he paid. So for me, it was still a job. The only ones left were me, my friend who got me the job, and one other woman. I remember there was a time when we started to really pressure him, like stay on his case. There was a time when there was a meeting going on, and I wasn't participating in the meeting because that wasn't my job in the company. My job in the company was all on my phone. That really started to irritate me deeply because I had to schedule live streams every single minute, and sometimes I had to be on the phone all day. I had to be online 24 hours a day. If he sent me a message and I took a minute to reply, that was enough for him to yell at me, to wreck my mental health. It was a huge amount of pressure. He demanded things from me as if I was like obligated to do everything he was telling me to do exactly when he wanted, in the time he wanted, just because he said so. That really irritated me. My friend went to have a meeting with him, right? And then he forgot to turn off the microphone. And there was someone next to him during the meeting, and he was saying that he was going to give my work to her because I was useless and didn't do things right. And this friend of mine came to tell me, and then I got really upset. When I went to talk to him, even about our payment that I was supposed to receive, he just told us that there was no money. And he said that his wife took all the money that was his for herself because she also had to get paid. Like, okay, so his wife has to get paid even though she wasn't even doing half the work we were doing, and that was annoying. And at that same time, I was watching his stories, and the guy was flashing cash in Rio de Janeiro. Flashing cash there in Rio de Janeiro. For someone without money, right? Wow, but as incredible as it may seem, I couldn't quit that job. But then he decided that he was really going to hire another employee to take over my part, right? And then we started going to his house to train this new employee, but I was forced to be on my phone 24 hours a day, both on Instagram, scheduling live streams, and having to respond to him. It was a lot of pressure, and my dad got sick. My dad was admitted to the ICU, and that shook our family. My dad is the pillar of our family. So it really affected me emotionally. And I just couldn't handle having to go there to train the employee, stay on the phone, and deal with the emotional stress at home. And there was a day when I just didn't want to touch my phone. Guys, I started to feel repulsed by my phone. I started to feel sick just having to pick up the phone. I started to get angry at my phone, angry at social media. Just so you have an idea, this was such a delicate time in my life that I didn't even want to watch videos on the internet, TikTok, or anything like that. I had no patience to be on my phone. I just wanted to like smash my phone. That was really irritating for me. It was very traumatic. Then there was a day when I didn't go to work. And then because I didn't go to work, 2 days later, he fired me. And then, of course, he fired me. That's no problem at all. I actually needed him to fire me anyway. I went there to get my money. And by the way, during that time, I was doing a bunch of things on his Instagram. In fact, there were several little videos that I would edit, that I would work on to help out, because honestly, his live streams were ridiculous. No one watched, no one cared, no one had the patience. I don't know why he kept acting like an idiot, scheduling a bunch of live streams when no one was online, no one watched, no one cared about that. A scammer, a guy who sells something that's a lie, he already has a bunch of lawsuits against him, scamming people. And I even managed to get at least some of his Instagram videos some engagement. Because I would comment there, I would try to poke around, mess with it to see if I could boost his Instagram a little. Cheaper than water. So, like, wow, it was really delicate. And when I went to quit, he turned to me and said he wasn't going to pay me because I was really useless. Man, that was the worst for me. Wow, it really was the worst. He didn't pay my salary, he delayed my salary, he did everything wrong, he belittled me, he insulted me, did a lot of really bad things, said I didn't do anything. He was the kind of person who doesn't teach you what you have to do, you have to be born ready. If you don't know something, he acts like he's perfect and no one will ever reach his level. He belittles everyone around him. He's annoying. He's unbearable. I don't even know if he can stand himself, if he can put up with himself because he's so annoying. I'm sure the employee I trained isn't working with him now, since I was the one who worked with him most. Because look, I didn't even work there for that long. Because people there are always coming and going. Because he really is a scammer, him and his wife. And honestly, guys, I developed a really strong aversion from my first work experience. I really did. I don't like Instagram. I never want to work with social media ever again. In my life, it was supposed to be a first experience, a place where I could grow, put it on my resume, and help me move forward. What it did was traumatize me. It put me in a place of, real aversion, of not wanting it, of trauma. I felt really bad about this whole situation. And like one thing I didn't do was report him. I didn't report him because I don't know, I was afraid of the situation, of what could happen. I didn't want any more involvement with him because honestly, he's really exhausting and very tiring. I'm still traumatized by him to this day. I can't stand hearing his tone of voice, and I hope in my life to never again work with social media or accept any kind of job like that. Hi, my cats, how are you all doing? Girl, as she was telling me this story, I realized how common this is, okay? This happens to a lot of people because people make money, then they live in luxury, then they show off that luxury lifestyle and make more money. So they're there posting, sometimes they pay 800 Rs to take a helicopter ride, make a video and say, look how I got rich. They post it on social media and then you buy the course. A bunch of money starts coming into their account and the only thing they're doing is putting others down. It's talking about what money is, how money works, and not teaching you how to work. Look, there's a tool. You're going to do it like this, like this, like this, and then you'll get the money this way and that way, or you'll sell this product, or you'll, No. It's just a bunch of coaches trying to change your mindset, telling you how your mind has to work for you to get rich, making money off of it, leaving people poorer and poorer while putting the money in their own pockets. But her experience wasn't about buying a course, right? Her experience was working for a scammer, and of course she was a victim too. I'm sure she went through that because he probably tricks everyone around him. That's the truth. But from my point of view, you really should report him, okay? I believe that since there are several other people who are suing and everything, your case is different. It's an employment lawsuit, right? You didn't have a signed contract, you provided services there, your mental health was affected, so there are several points you could pursue if you go to a psychologist, and maybe with your psychologist, you can get some information or something that can help you. In this case, if it makes sense, obviously, I understand that you are worn out. But I also believe that when we tell our story and when we fight for our rights, we're doing something good for humanity, helping others as well, besides helping ourselves, right? Preventing other people from becoming victims too, preventing his company from staying open, preventing others from falling for these scams, right? And besides filing an employment lawsuit, you can provide proof and serve as a witness for those people who reported him, who sued him, that you were there, that you saw it, right? That you knew he had seen it and wasn't responding, that he wasn't going to reimburse, and that he was acting in bad faith. A company doesn't work like that, right? We need to have some structure. So I really believe that with your report, with your voice could help a lot of this guy's victims. Because he's still out there free, unharmed, and scamming people, and that's it. If you have also fallen for a scam or worked for a company that tricked you, or if you witnessed a company scamming another company, send me your story at historiascanaldaya de Paula Ajmail. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Bye, and see you in the next video.